Welcome to the Learn English at Ease podcast. I'm Linda, and I'm just so thrilled to be here with you all today.
And I'm John, and I gotta say, I am already looking forward to this deep dive, even though I think it's gonna be a bit dangerous.
Oh, absolutely dangerous. I mean, we were just talking before we started recording, and we are both incredibly hungry right now.
Starving. I skipped breakfast, which was a huge mistake considering what we're about to talk about.
Right. So before we jump in and inevitably make ourselves completely ravenous, we do have a really quick, a small favor to ask all of you listening.
Yeah, just a tiny one.
If you want to support us and, keep improving your English fluency with us every single week, please hit that subscribe button right now. It really, truly helps our channel grow.
It takes like 1 second, and it means the absolute world to us. It really lets us keep making these deep dives for you.
Exactly. Thank you so much. So let's lay out the mission for today's conversation. We are diving into the universal language of humanity, which is, of course, food.
The ultimate icebreaker.
It really is. Whether you're traveling through a night market in a new country, or maybe sitting awkwardly at a dinner party trying to make conversation, food is the one thing everyone can talk about.
Right, because everybody eats.
Yes. But here is the challenge for you, the listener. We want to move you far beyond those basic textbook phrases.
Yeah, like knowing how to say, I like pizza is fine if you're an absolute beginner.
But it doesn't build a real connection, does it? It doesn't tell a story. So today, we are going to look at how to passionately describe your meals. We want to unpack the vocabulary of flavors, textures, and the idioms native speakers use.
Which is really about moving from just, basic data transfer to genuine storytelling. When you talk about what you eat, you're talking about where you come from.
I love that. And that emotional core is what makes that classic icebreaker question so incredibly difficult. You know the one.
Oh, yeah. What is your absolute favorite food?
People completely freeze up when you ask them that. Because it's not just what you enjoy on a regular Tuesday.
Right. You're asking them to crown one single dish as the king of all foods.
Exactly. Let's actually pause on that word for our learners. Favorite. We use it a lot, but it's such a powerful adjective. It means the one thing you prefer above all others in a specific category.
Yeah, your favorite color, your favorite movie, your favorite season. It's the ultimate winner.
Right. So it forces you to look at your whole culinary philosophy. Like, are you someone who values freshness and vitality, or are you all about rich, heavy indulgence?
Well, let's put you on the spot then.
Oh, boy. Okay.
If you had to distill the entire global spectrum of food down to one single dish, the one you could never get tired of, what is taking that #1 spot?
Okay, if we're talking about a food I could realistically eat day after day without my palate getting fatigued, it has to be sushi.
Really? Sushi?
Oh, definitely. And specifically salmon nigiri.
That is a very distinct choice. You got to break down the mechanics of that for us. Why does salmon nigiri win out over literally everything else?
Well, I think it comes down to avoiding palate fatigue. When you eat something really heavy, your taste buds literally get tired of the flavor after a few bites.
Right, they just get overwhelmed.
Yeah. But sushi is designed to be this ultimate clean experience. It's a study in perfect balance. You have the rice, which is slightly warm and seasoned with vinegar to give it a tiny touch of acidity.
Okay, yeah.
And then you have the slice of raw salmon on top. The temperature contrast between the warm rice and the cool fish is just crucial.
The temperature differential is something people rarely think about, honestly, but it completely changes how the flavor hits your tongue.
Exactly.
Like if the fish is too cold, you can't taste the fats at all.
Yeah.
And if the rice is too cold, it gets hard and chalky.
Yes. The starch in the rice needs to be relaxed. And the texture of high-quality salmon is what makes it so addictive. When native speakers describe really good raw fish, we often use the word buttery.
Let's pause on that adjective because that's a fantastic piece of advanced vocabulary for you guys listening. When a native speaker says a piece of fish or maybe a slice of avocado is buttery, they aren't saying it tastes like actual dairy butter.
Right, definitely not. They're describing the mouthfeel.
The mouthfeel.
Yeah, mouthfeel is exactly what it sounds like, the physical sensation of the food inside your mouth. A buttery texture means the food contains a high amount of healthy fats.
Ah, so it's super soft.
Exactly. It's incredibly soft and smooth, so it practically dissolves on your tongue without you even needing to chew it much.
It just sort of coats your palate in this luxurious way.
Yeah.
But how do you balance that fat so it doesn't just become, overwhelming?
Well, that is where the accoutrements come in. You've got the sharp nasal heat of the wasabi, which just clears your sinuses right out.
That is a very specific type of heat for sure.
And between bites, you eat a slice of pickled ginger. The ginger acts as a palate cleanser.
Right, a palate cleanser.
Yeah, the sharp acidity of the vinegar on the ginger physically washes the residual fish fat off your taste buds. It completely resets your mouth, so the next bite tastes just as vibrant as the first.
Wow.
That cycle, the fat, the heat, the acid, that's why I could eat it every single day.
Okay, I see the logic there. You're basically building a perpetual motion machine of flavor. The acid resets the tongue, so you never get tired of the fat.
Exactly. But I have a feeling your philosophy is entirely different.
Oh, it is the exact opposite. I don't want my palate cleansed at all. I want my palate completely overwhelmed.
I expected nothing less. So what is your reigning champion of the food world?
For me, it's pasta. And if I am forced into a corner to pick just one, it is an authentic, traditional spaghetti carbonara.
Oh, wow. The heavyweight champion of Italian indulgence. Walk us through why carbonara defeats everything else for you.
Carbonara is essentially culinary magic because it relies on this incredible chemical process called emulsification. Yeah. A true Roman carbonara only has 4 ingredients. You've got pasta, cured pork jowl, which is called guanciale, hard pecorino cheese, and raw eggs. Notice there is 0 cream in an authentic carbonara.
Wait, I think a lot of our learners might be super surprised by that. In so many restaurants around the world, carbonara is served as this thick, heavy white cream sauce.
And that is a culinary tragedy. I mean it. Adding heavy cream is a cheat used by restaurants that just don't know how to properly emulsify.
So for the listeners, what exactly is emulsification in the kitchen?
Emulsification is a scientific process where you force 2 liquids that normally hate each other, like fat and water, to bind together into a smooth, unified sauce.
Oh, right, because oil and water normally separate. How does that actually happen in the pan?
Well, you slowly render the fat out of the pork. And rendering is actually a great term for our learners to know.
Oh, definitely.
It means cooking a fatty piece of meat over low heat until the solid fat melts and turns into a liquid oil, leaving the meat itself incredibly crispy.
So you end up with this hot liquid pork fat in the pan.
Right. And in a separate bowl, you have beaten raw eggs and grated cheese.
Mm-hmm.
The magic happens when you pull the hot pasta straight from the boiling water.
You mix it all together?
Yeah, but off the heat. You mix the starchy pasta water, the hot pork fat, and the egg mixture together. If you do it right, the starch acts as a chemical bridge, forcing the fat and the eggs to bind into this glossy, incredibly rich sauce.
The word rich is so vital here. When we talk about a rich dessert or a rich sauce in English, we mean it has a very high concentration of fats like butter, egg yolks, or oil.
Exactly.
It gives it a heavy, intense coating sensation in the mouth. It's pretty much the complete opposite of the light, fresh feeling of my sushi.
Totally. It is intensely rich.
Yeah.
And it relies entirely on the Maillard reaction.
The browning process, right?
Yes. When the pork gets crispy in the pan, the amino acids and sugars in the meat react to the heat. It creates hundreds of new, complex flavor compounds.
I can practically smell it while you're describing it.
That deep, savory, almost nutty flavor combined with the sharp, salty bite of the cheese is just phenomenal.
Okay. But let's apply the exact same test to your carbonara that we applied to my sushi. Could you realistically eat a massive bowl of heavily emulsified pork fat, eggs, and cheese every single day?
I mean, if I did, I would probably need a nap every afternoon at 2 p.m.
Exactly.
It is undeniably heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It sits in your stomach like a warm brick.
Yeah.
So from a purely physiological standpoint, yeah, maybe eating it every day would be a disaster.
But emotionally.
Emotionally, every time I eat it, I am transported straight back to my childhood kitchen.
Right.
The smell of rendering pork fat
Yeah.
just instantly lowers my blood pressure.
That emotional connection is so powerful, and it really highlights how different global cuisines operate on entirely different philosophies.
They really do.
Like Italian cuisine, as you just described with the carbonara, is fundamentally about restraint. It's about taking 3 or 4 incredibly high-quality ingredients and treating them with just obsessive respect.
Right. The philosophy there is don't hide the ingredient. Let the tomato taste like a tomato. Let the pork taste like pork.
But if we travel to a totally different part of the world, that philosophy is completely flipped upside down. Think about Thai cuisine.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever tried to cook a traditional Thai dish at home?
I have, and it requires a completely different mindset. If Italian food is like a solo violin performance, Thai food is a massive, chaotic symphony orchestra where every single instrument is playing at maximum volume.
That is a brilliant analogy. Thai cuisine doesn't rely on restraint. It relies on stacking.
Stacking flavors.
Yes. A single bowl of tom yum soup or a green curry is attempting to hit 4 distinct flavor receptors on your tongue simultaneously.
Yeah.
You've got spicy, sweet, sour, and salty.
And they achieve that balance using incredibly intense ingredients.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the sourness coming from fresh lime juice or tamarind. The saltiness doesn't come from table salt. It comes from fermented fish sauce, which adds this deep, pungent funkiness.
And the sweetness comes from palm sugar. And then, of course, you have the heat.
Which brings us right into the great spice debate.
Let's get into it. The concept of heat in food is so deeply misunderstood by people. Let's talk about the biology of what is actually happening when you eat something spicy, because honestly, it isn't a flavor at all, is it?
Not at all. Sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. Those are flavors that are picked up by your taste buds. Spicy is actually a physical sensation of pain.
Wow, pain.
Yeah. Chili peppers contain a chemical compound called capsaicin. And when capsaicin hits your tongue, it binds to specific pain receptors that are actually designed to detect physical heat.
Wait, like the heat from a fire or boiling water?
Exactly. So the pepper tricks your brain into believing your mouth is literally suffering from a thermal burn, even though the physical temperature of the food might just be room temperature.
That's wild. So your brain just panics. It thinks, we are on fire.
Precisely. It triggers all these defensive physiological responses. Your heart rate increases, you start sweating to cool your body down, your nose starts running to flush out the irritant.
And your brain dumps a massive dose of endorphins to help you cope with the pain.
Right. Which explains why some people are completely addicted to incredibly spicy food. They are literally chasing an endorphin high. They want that adrenaline rush.
But knowing your own tolerance level is crucial, especially when you are ordering at a restaurant. For our language learners, navigating a menu in a foreign country can be an absolute minefield if you don't know the vocabulary of heat.
Oh, it really can be.
Yes, the spectrum usually ranges from mild to medium to spicy to extra spicy. If a dish is mild, it means the heat is barely detectable.
Right, it might have a warm spice like cumin or ginger, but it will not trigger that capsaicin pain response.
And this is where ego usually gets in the way of a good meal, doesn't it?
Oh, man. I am speaking from very painful, very embarrassing personal experience here.
I can hear the regret in your voice already. You have to tell us what happened.
Well, a few years ago, I was out at a very authentic, highly rated Thai restaurant. It was with someone I really wanted to impress, you know. I was trying to project this image of being a sophisticated, adventurous world traveler.
Oh, I see where this is going.
I looked at the menu, and I saw a traditional green curry. Next to the name of the dish, there were 3 little red chili pepper icons.
3 chili peppers?
Yeah.
John, that is the universal restaurant warning symbol for, this will hurt you.
I know. It is the culinary equivalent of a biohazard sign. And I just ignored it.
You ignored the warning.
I did. The waiter even tried to save me. He came to the table, looked at my order, and very politely asked, "Are you sure? We make this traditionally. It is very, very hot."
And what would you say?
And I, with complete arrogance, smiled and said, I love heat. Make it extra spicy. I can handle it.
Oh, no, you challenged the chef. You never, ever challenged the chef in a Thai restaurant.
It was the worst mistake of my life.
Tell me what happened when it arrived.
Well, the bowl arrives, and it looks beautiful. It has this vibrant green coconut milk broth. Take a large spoonful, swallow it, and for about 3 seconds, it tasted incredibly fragrant. Lemongrass, galangal, sweet coconut.
And then?
And then the capsaicin hit the back of my throat.
What was the physical reaction?
It felt like a chemical weapon had been detonated inside my skull. My vision actually blurred for a second. We have a very common idiom in English for this. My mouth was on fire.
Your mouth was on fire.
But it wasn't just my mouth. My face turned a deep shade of crimson. I started sweating heavily from my forehead and the back of my neck. My eyes were watering so badly that tears were actually rolling down my cheeks.
Oh my goodness. Could you even speak to the person you were trying to impress?
I couldn't form a coherent sentence. I was just gasping for air. I drank my entire glass of ice water in one single gulp, which, by the way, is actually the worst thing you can do.
Yes, from a chemical standpoint, capsaicin is an oil. It is hydrophobic, meaning it repels water.
Exactly.
So when you drink a glass of ice water, you aren't extinguishing the fire, you are just spreading the spicy oil all over the inside of your mouth, making the pain cover a much wider surface area.
I really wish I had known that science at the time. I ended up drinking my water, my date's water, and just sitting there silently weeping.
That is so tragic.
The waiter eventually walked over, took pity on me, and handed me a small bowl of plain, unseasoned white rice and a glass of milk to help absorb the oils. My ego was completely destroyed.
That is a phenomenal lesson in humility. Now, if I go to a Thai restaurant, I stick to the safe zone. A classic pad Thai.
Oh, a great choice.
It is the perfect example of a balanced, mild dish. The tamarind paste gives it a gentle sourness, the palm sugar makes it sweet, and the crushed peanuts on top give it this wonderful crunchy texture. No tears required.
Exactly. I have permanently retired from the extreme spice game. But capsaicin is a chemical compound that overpowers us through pain. There are other chemical compounds in food that overpower us through sheer pleasure.
Oh, that's so true. Let's transition into the foods that we have absolutely zero willpower against. The things we eat even when we are completely full.
This is such an interesting psychological space. In English, we call this my weakness.
Let's explain that for the learners. When you say, French fries are my weakness, you are speaking metaphorically. You mean that your desire for that specific food completely overrides your logical brain and your self-control.
Right. It's the food that, if it is sitting on a table in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
you will unconsciously keep reaching for it until the plate is empty, regardless of how much you have already eaten.
You just can't stop.
So what is the ultimate weakness that breaks your willpower?
Without hesitation, it is cheese.
Cheese. That is a very broad category.
That is exactly why it's my weakness. The variety is just staggering, and there is an actual biological reason why cheese is so addictive.
Really? Biology again.
Yes. It isn't just about the taste, it is about the chemistry of milk proteins. Cheese contains a protein called casein. When your body digests casein, it breaks it down into smaller compounds called casomorphins.
Wait, morphins as in morphine?
Mm-hmm.
The drug.
Exactly. Casomorphins attach to the exact same dopamine receptors in your brain that opioid drugs do. They trigger a mild, localized release of dopamine, which is the brain's reward and pleasure chemical.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. Evolutionarily, this is supposed to encourage infant mammals to keep drinking their mother's milk. But when you take milk, remove the water, and condense it into a block of solid cheese, you are basically creating a highly concentrated brick of dopamine-triggering proteins.
That explains so much about human behavior at parties.
Hmm.
You put a cheese board out, and people act like they are magnetized to it.
I am one of those people. I will stand right next to the cheese board.
Yeah.
And I just love the textural journey of a good cheese board.
Tell me about it.
Well, you have the hard-aged cheeses, like a Parmigiano Reggiano, where the proteins have actually crystallized over years of aging, so it has this incredible salty crunch when you bite into it.
Oh, yeah, those little crystals.
And then you have the soft, spreadable cheeses like brie, which has that earthy, bloomy rind on the outside and a gooey, creamy center that you spread over a cracker. It is just the perfect savory indulgence.
It is so interesting that your weakness is heavily rooted in savory, salty, umami flavors. It really shows a distinct divide in how human palates are wired.
How so?
Well, while you are chasing the savory casemorsins in cheese, I am chasing a completely different chemical high. I have what we call a sweet tooth.
Let's define sweet tooth for our listeners. It is a fantastic idiom.
Yeah, if you have a sweet tooth, it means you have a disproportionate craving for sugary foods, candy, pastries, chocolate, often specifically after a savory meal.
Yes, I know people like this. You can eat a massive dinner, feel completely stuffed, but your brain will whisper, we still have room for dessert.
Exactly. And my ultimate weakness, the thing I simply cannot say no to, is ice cream. Specifically, rich, dark chocolate ice cream.
What is it about chocolate ice cream that makes it so irresistible to you? Do you like it loaded with extra ingredients like marshmallows, cookie dough, caramel swirls?
No, I am actually a purist when it comes to my weakness.
Mm.
I think adding too many inclusions ruins the structural integrity of the ice cream.
A purist, I love it.
I want the smooth, freezing, cold creaminess to hit my tongue, followed immediately by the deep roasted cocoa notes. The only thing I might add is some dark chocolate chips, just to introduce a crunchy texture to contrast the smoothness of the cream. But I don't want a circus of flavors.
See, I enjoy ice cream occasionally, but my palate gets exhausted by pure sugar very quickly. If I'm going to have ice cream, my absolute favorite flavor is matcha green tea.
Matcha. That is fascinating because it is highly polarizing. To a lot of people with a traditional sweet tooth, matcha doesn't taste like dessert at all. Why do you prefer it?
Because it provides a necessary counterbalance. High-quality matcha powder has high levels of tannins, which are the exact same compounds you find in red wine or dark black tea.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and tannins create a flavor profile that is slightly bitter and astringent.
Slightly bitter is a great descriptive phrase for our learners to practice. In English, bitter is often used negatively like medicine or burnt coffee. But in a culinary context, controlled bitterness is highly sophisticated.
Exactly. When you blend that slightly bitter, earthy matcha powder with heavy cream and sugar, magic happens. The bitterness cuts straight through the heavy fat of the cream.
Right, it stops it from being too much.
It stops the sugar from being cloying and overwhelming. It makes the ice cream feel refreshing rather than heavy.
It is a palate cleanser built directly into the dessert itself. You are using the bitterness the exact same way you use the pickled ginger with your sushi. You are constantly balancing the scales.
I am a creature of habit, what can I say? But let's look at the emotional utility of these weaknesses.
Yeah, let's do that.
We don't just eat cheese and chocolate because we want the calories. We eat them because they alter our emotional state. They soothe us, which transitions us perfectly into one of the most culturally significant concepts in the English language: comfort food.
This is a vital term for anyone learning the language. Comfort food is not a specific recipe. It is a category of eating based entirely on psychology.
How would you define it?
It refers to meals that provide a profound sense of emotional well-being, nostalgia, or psychological consolation.
Yes, we reach for comfort foods when we're experiencing negative emotions, like when we are stressed at work, grieving a loss, feeling lonely, or even just dealing with a cold, rainy day. We are essentially using food to self-medicate and self-soothe.
And what is remarkable is that while the definition of comfort food is universal, the actual dishes are hyper-specific to your culture and your childhood.
Oh, definitely.
A person who grew up in Tokyo might find immense comfort in a steaming bowl of miso soup or a specific type of onigiri. A person from London might crave a heavy meat pie and mashed potatoes.
So if you had an incredibly stressful week, what is the one meal that instantly lowers your cortisol levels?
Oh, that's easy. For me, it is absolutely macaroni and cheese.
Mac and cheese, the ultimate North American comfort classic.
It really is. And I am not talking about a gourmet restaurant version with truffle oil and lobster. I am talking about the simple, homemade version.
There is something so pure about the homemade version.
For me, it is the perfect synthesis of physical warmth and heavy carbohydrates.
Mm.
When you are stressed, your body burns through energy quickly. A hot bowl of pasta coated in a thick, melted cheddar sauce provides this immediate, heavy, grounding sensation. We use the word satisfying to describe this.
Let's unpack satisfying. It's a crucial adjective. A green salad might be healthy and it might stop your stomach from growling, but it often isn't satisfying.
Right.
Satisfying means it fulfills a deep craving, leaving you feeling mentally content, relaxed, and full.
Exactly. The heavy cheese and the warm pasta create a literal physical warmth in your chest that feels incredibly satisfying, almost like you were receiving a hug from the inside out.
I can totally picture that.
What about you? When you are feeling run down, maybe fighting off a winter cold, what do you reach for?
Oh, if I am sick or exhausted, the only answer is soup. Specifically, a homemade chicken noodle soup. It is practically treated as medicine in many households.
Let's talk about the specific architecture of a good soup, because it gives us a chance to highlight some great collocations, words that naturally pair together in native English.
Yes. When I visualize the perfect chicken soup, it is built on 3 pillars. First, you have a deeply flavorful, hot broth. The broth is the liquid foundation, made by simmering bones and vegetables in water for hours until the liquid absorbs all their nutrients and flavor.
And drinking a hot broth is incredibly warming. That isn't just poetry, it's a physical reality.
It really is.
The heat of the liquid dilates the blood vessels in your throat and stomach, increasing blood flow and literally warming your core temperature.
The second pillar is the starch, usually soft, wide egg noodles that provide that carbohydrate comfort we talked about. And the third pillar is the protein. You want chunks of tender chicken.
Tender is a fantastic vocabulary word for learners. Notice that we do not say soft chicken.
Right. We use soft for things that are meant to be pliable, like a pillow or a fresh loaf of bread. If meat is described as soft, it usually sounds unappetizing, like it has gone bad.
Right. But tender means the meat has been cooked slowly and perfectly, breaking down the tough muscle fibers so that it is incredibly easy to chew. It just falls apart on your spoon.
It's the best. The combination of hot broth, soft noodles, and tender chicken is just unbeatable. In my family, my grandmother used to make a version of this that took her an entire day to cook.
An entire day for a pot of soup.
Yes, she refused to russet. She would roast the bones first to get that Maillard browning we talked about earlier, then simmer them with onions, celery, carrots, and this secret blend of herbs. The whole house would smell like thyme and chicken fat for 12 hours. And I really think that smell is actually the secret ingredient to comfort food.
You are tapping into some intense neuroscience there. Yeah. The olfactory bulb, which processes the smells we breathe in, has a direct neural pathway to the amygdala and the hippocampus. And those are the exact areas of the brain responsible for emotion and memory.
Oh, wow. Which means when you smell thyme and simmering chicken broth, your brain literally bypasses logical thought and instantly drops you back into a memory of being 8 years old in your grandmother's kitchen, feeling completely safe and loved.
The food is seasoned with nostalgia.
That is a beautiful way to put it. And comfort doesn't just come from old family recipes. It also comes from the structures and traditions we build around our meals today. Routine is a form of psychological comfort.
That's a great point.
Do you have any specific culinary traditions in your current routine?
I am very fiercely protective of my Sunday mornings. During the week, my breakfasts are chaotic. I am eating a piece of toast while standing up, checking emails, rushing out the door.
Oh, I know that feeling.
But on Sunday, I have a strict micro-tradition. I make a massive stack of buttermilk pancakes from scratch.
The physical act of cooking them must be a huge part of the relaxation.
It is entirely about the process. Mixing the thick batter, listening to it sizzle as it hits the hot buttered pan, waiting for the little bubbles to form on the surface so you know exactly when to flip them.
It sounds so peaceful.
It is. Then stacking them up, pouring warm maple syrup over the top, and adding fresh berries. The sugar is great, but the real comfort is the message the ritual sends to my brain. It says, the rush is over. You have time today. You can breathe.
I absolutely love that. In my house, we have a very similar tradition, but it happens at the opposite end of the weekend. We have a strict, non-negotiable rule called Pizza Friday.
Pizza Friday sounds like an incredibly important institution.
Oh, it is the anchor of our week. By 6 p.m. on Friday, after 5 days of meetings, commuting, and stress, the absolute last thing anyone wants to do is look at a cutting board or wash a pan.
Amen to that.
So we refuse to cook. We order a large, heavy pizza. We open a bottle of wine. We sit on the couch in our sweatpants, and we watch a movie.
It is the perfect psychological boundary. The pizza physically separates the stress of the work week from the freedom of the weekend.
Exactly.
But, listening to us describe our comfort foods, mac and cheese, pancakes loaded with syrup, heavy pizza, there's a glaringly obvious pattern here. None of these foods are going to win any nutritional awards.
No, a cardiologist would probably cry listening to this segment. Comfort foods are almost inherently unhealthy from a purely physical standpoint. They rely on high carbohydrates, heavy fats, and high sodium to trigger those dopamine responses in the brain.
Which often leads to a debate about being health conscious. In modern society, there is intense pressure to constantly optimize our diets. Eat lean proteins, eat raw vegetables, avoid carbohydrates.
Right, and while physical health is obviously crucial, I think we sometimes ignore the immense value of mental health.
I completely agree. If you spend your entire life terrified of a slice of pizza or a bowl of pasta, constantly calculating calories and denying yourself any culinary pleasure, you are inducing a massive amount of psychological stress.
Yes. Treating yourself occasionally isn't a failure of willpower. It is a required pressure release valve. Food is fuel for the biological machine, yes, but it is also a fundamental source of human joy.
Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for your mind is to eat a piece of chocolate cake and not feel guilty about it.
A perfectly balanced perspective. So we have spent a long time romanticizing food, talking about the dishes that make us feel safe, happy, and comforted. But the culinary world has a dark side. Let's flip the script and talk about the foods that we absolutely despise.
The deal breakers. The foods that can ruin an entire meal just by being on the plate. In English, we have a very specific phrase for this level of aversion. We say, I can't stand it.
Let's make sure our learners understand the weight of that phrase. If you say, I don't like broccoli, you're expressing a mild negative preference. If someone serves you broccoli, you might politely eat a little bit or just push it to the side.
But if you say, I can't stand broccoli, you are expressing active hostility. The phrase means you refuse to tolerate its presence. The smell, the texture, the taste that disgusts you to the point where it will completely ruin your appetite.
So let's expose our culinary prejudices. What is the one universally loved food that you absolutely can't stand?
I know I'm going to alienate a large percentage of our listeners here, but I cannot stand very fatty meats.
Really? You just spent 10 minutes passionately defending the rendered pork fat in a carbonara.
It all comes down to the execution of the texture. Let me explain. There is a massive trend in the culinary world right now, obsessed with things like pork belly or eating steaks with massive, thick ribbons of fat running through them. I can't do it. I vastly prefer lean meat.
Lean meat refers to muscle tissue that has very little fat attached to it, like a skinless chicken breast or a filet mignon steak. But why do you hate the fat? Is it the flavor?
It isn't the flavor. The flavor of fat is great. It is 100% the texture. If the fat has not been properly rendered down, it has this bouncy, rubbery, intensely chewy texture.
Let's define chewy. If a food is chewy, it means it requires a significant amount of jaw effort to break it down before you can safely swallow it. In some contexts, this is highly desirable. A fresh New York bagel is beautifully chewy. A caramel candy is pleasantly chewy.
But an animal protein should not be chewy like a rubber band. When you bite into a thick piece of unrendered pork fat, your teeth just sort of bounce off of it. It feels gelatinous and slimy. It triggers a literal gag reflex for me.
Does this hatred of fat extend to breakfast meats? What is your stance on bacon?
Bacon is the ultimate battleground for this exact issue. I will happily eat bacon, but only if it is cooked to the absolute limit. It must be aggressively crispy.
Crispy meaning it has lost almost all of its moisture and fat, becoming rigid and brittle.
Yes. When I bite into bacon, I want it to practically shatter into dust in my mouth. I want this sharp auditory crunch. If someone serves me thick-cut bacon that is limp, floppy, and has those translucent white strips of chewy fat on the edges, I can't stand it. I will send it back.
It is fascinating how aversions are almost entirely dictated by texture rather than flavor. I am exactly the same way with my ultimate deal breaker.
All right, what is the food that ruins your day?
I cannot, under any circumstances, eat a mushroom.
A mushroom. They are the foundation of so many cuisines. French cooking, Japanese cooking, Italian cooking, they are everywhere.
I know they're inescapable, which makes my life very difficult at restaurants. But to me, they are offensive on two completely different sensory levels. First, the flavor. People who love mushrooms always describe them using the adjective earthy.
Let's look at that word. When a chef calls a food earthy, they mean it as a high compliment. They're describing a deep, complex, savory flavor that evokes the smell of a forest floor after a rainstorm. Beets are earthy. Truffles are highly earthy. Green tea can be earthy.
Sure, chefs use it as a compliment, but to my palate, earthy isn't a romantic metaphor. It is literal. To me, a mushroom tastes like a spoonful of wet potting soil from my backyard. It tastes exactly like dirt.
That is a very visceral reaction. What is the second sensory offense?
The texture. The cellular structure of a mushroom contains a substance called chitin, which is the exact same material that makes up the exoskeletons of insects and crabs.
Wow, that is a terrifying biological fact to bring to a dinner table.
It explains the texture. Because of the chitin, mushrooms don't break down like a vegetable. When you cook them, they release all this water, but they retain this spongy, slightly slimy, incredibly rubbery texture. When I bite into a mushroom, it literally squeaks against my teeth. It is a textural nightmare.
The squeaking teeth is a horrifying visual, but you are proving a massive point here. Studies in food science show that the human brain decides whether it likes a food based on texture in a fraction of a second, long before the brain fully processes the complex flavor.
Yes. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. For early humans foraging in the wild, texture was the primary warning system. If a berry was meant to be firm and crisp, but you touched it and it was mushy and slimy, your brain instantly told you, this is rotting, do not eat it. We carry those ancestral texture warnings with us today.
Which is why there are certain textures that are universally despised across almost all cultures. Let me give you a quick challenge to test this. I'm going to describe a specific textural experience without naming the food, and I want to see if you can identify what it is.
I love a good culinary guessing game. Go for it.
Okay. Imagine you go to a fast food drive-thru. You are incredibly hungry. You order a side dish that is supposed to be hot, rigid, and have a beautiful, sharp crunch on the outside with a fluffy interior. But because it was trapped inside a paper bag, the steam created condensation. The food absorbed all that moisture. Now, when you pick it up, it bends entirely in half under its own weight. It feels damp, it is room temperature, and the exterior has turned into a wet paste.
You are describing the absolute tragedy. That is the texture of being soggy, and you are definitely talking about soggy French fries.
Spot on. Soggy French fries are universally depressing. Soggy is a fantastic descriptive word. It means unpleasantly wet, soft, and heavy, usually describing something that was supposed to be dry or crisp.
Yes, if you pour milk into a bowl of cereal and then get distracted by a phone call for 20 minutes, you come back to a bowl of soggy mush.
Exactly. Nobody wants a soggy fry, just like nobody wants a chewy piece of bacon or a squeaky, rubbery mushroom. It really highlights how eating is a multisensory experience. It isn't just about taste, it is about sound, touch, and smell.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most important variable in the culinary experience. We've talked about what we eat, but where we eat and how that food is prepared changes everything. The environment alters the perception of the food.
You're talking about the great divide,
Mm,
the home kitchen versus the professional restaurant, dining in versus dining out.
exactly. Because a bowl of pasta eaten standing up over your kitchen sink feels entirely different than the exact same bowl of pasta eaten at a candlelit table with a waiter pouring you wine. Both approaches have massive pros and cons. Where do you naturally lean? Are you more comfortable as the home chef or as the restaurant critic?
I will happily admit that I strongly prefer dining out. I love the theater of a restaurant.
The theater. That is an interesting way to phrase it.
It really is a performance. From the moment you walk through the doors, you're paying for an orchestrated experience. The lighting is designed to make you relax. The host seats you. A professional server hands you a menu, pours your water, and anticipates your needs. For 90 minutes, your only responsibility in the world is to sit there and enjoy yourself. You're outsourcing all of your stress.
I totally understand the appeal of the luxury, but for me, I actually prefer cooking and eating at home.
Really, even after a long day of work.
Yes, and there are two major reasons. The first is control. When you go to a restaurant, you are surrendering all control to the kitchen. But when you are the home chef, you have total authority over the meal. You know exactly what quality of ingredients you are using. You know exactly how much oil went into the pan.
So you are looking at it from a health-conscious perspective.
Partly health, yes. You can control the sodium levels, but you can also control the portion size.
Portion size. Let's define that. It refers to the specific amount of food that is served to one person.
Exactly. The restaurant industry in many countries has normalized absolutely massive portion sizes. They serve you a plate of pasta that is realistically enough calories for 3 days because they want you to feel like you are getting good value for your money. At home, I can cook a normal, reasonable portion that leaves me satisfied but not in physical pain.
That is a very rational argument. But there is a massive disadvantage to cooking at home. The dark side of the home kitchen.
I know exactly what you are going to say. The aftermath.
The cleaning up. It is the great equalizer. You spend 90 minutes meticulously chopping onions, searing meat, and whisking sauces. You eat the meal in 15 minutes. And then you turn around, and your kitchen looks like a disaster zone. Every pot, pan, cutting board, and spatula you own is covered in grease and piled in the sink.
It is the ultimate punishment for a good meal.
That is exactly why I prefer restaurants. I want to finish my last bite of dessert, pay the bill, and walk away, leaving the dirty dishes in someone else's hands. But beyond the cleanup, there is a fundamental difference in the quality of the food. There are certain dishes that I simply cannot replicate at home, no matter how hard I try.
It is true. Restaurants have access to specialized equipment that home cooks don't. For example, I have this incredible, tiny Japanese restaurant near my house called Sakura. The chef there has been cutting fish for 30 years. He has access to wholesale fish markets that I can't get into, and he uses knives that cost more than my car. I could never, ever make salmon nigiri at home that tastes like his.
It is the same for me with Italian food. I have a local spot that has the most wonderfully cliche name, literally called Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia, that is perfect.
It sounds like a cartoon, but the kitchen is completely serious. Their carbonara is vastly superior to anything I can make in my own kitchen.
Why do you think that is? What is the secret that restaurants know that home cooks don't?
Professional chefs have actually been very open about this. The secret to why restaurant food tastes so incredible, so rich, and so intense is that they use terrifying amounts of two specific ingredients: butter and salt.
More than a home cook would use.
Drastically more. A home cook will put a tiny slice of butter in a pan and feel slightly guilty about it. A professional chef will drop a quarter-pound block of butter into a pan to finish a single steak, continuously basting it. They season the meat with aggressive amounts of coarse salt from high above to ensure even coverage. They aren't cooking for your long-term cardiovascular health. They are cooking to hit your pleasure receptors as hard as possible in that single hour.
And there's also the element of heat. A standard home stove burner puts out maybe 10,000 BTUs of thermal energy. A commercial restaurant wok burner puts out 100,000 BTUs. You physically cannot get a pan hot enough in a home kitchen to get the same sear on a piece of meat that a restaurant gets.
Which is why trying to cook foreign cuisines at home can sometimes end in utter tragedy. It takes a lot of bravery to step outside your cultural culinary zone.
I know that pain intimately. Let me tell you about my attempt to cook an authentic Indian curry from scratch.
From scratch. A perfect idiom. To make something from scratch means to build it using only the most basic, raw ingredients. You don't use a jar of pre-made sauce or a spice packet. You start from zero. So you decided to make a complex curry from scratch.
I was feeling very ambitious. I researched traditional recipes. I went to a specialty spice market and bought raw cumin seeds, coriander, cardamom pods, turmeric, and fresh ginger. I spent over 2 hours carefully toasting the raw spices in a dry pan to release their oils, then grinding them down in a mortar and pestle. I slowly cooked the onions until they were deeply caramelized. I followed every step meticulously.
You put the work in. So how did it turn out?
Turn out is a great phrasal verb, meaning what was the final result? The final result was an absolute disaster.
Really? After all that labor and all those fresh spices, what went wrong?
It was completely, overwhelmingly bland.
Bland. The saddest word in the culinary dictionary.
Yes, bland means it lacks strong features or characteristics. It is flavorless, boring, unexciting. The exact opposite of flavorful or tasty. I had used 20 different aromatic spices, but the final dish tasted like a bowl of hot yellow water.
How is that even chemically possible?
It goes back to exactly what you just said about restaurants. I was being too health conscious. Spices contain essential oils, and those flavor compounds are fat soluble. They need fat to carry the flavor to your tongue. Authentic Indian restaurant curries use a massive amount of ghee, which is clarified butter, to bloom the spices. I used a tiny, healthy teaspoon of olive oil, and I was terrified of oversalting it, so I barely used any salt. Without salt to open up the palate and without fat to carry the spices, the entire 2 hours of work tasted like absolutely nothing.
That is heartbreaking. It really proves that technique and chemistry are just as important as the ingredients themselves.
Yeah.
But surely you have had some victories in the home kitchen.
I have. A few weeks after the curry disaster, I tried making Mexican tacos from scratch, and it was a massive triumph. I used a heavy cast iron pan to get a really hard sear on the ground beef. I made sure to use enough fat and salt. I set out crispy corn taco shells, shredded sharp cheese, fresh lettuce, and sour cream. It took a lot of prep work to chop all the garnishes, but the final product was explosive. It was deeply flavorful.
See, when the chemistry works, the reward of cooking from scratch is immense. But when I want guaranteed flavor, I still rely on the professionals. Which brings up an interesting social dynamic.
Yeah.
When you do go out to a new restaurant, how do you navigate the menu? How do you decide what is actually worth eating?
I am very extroverted when I order. I look at the menu, but ultimately I want the inside scoop. When the waiter comes to the table, I will ask them directly, what is your most popular dish? Or if you were eating here on your day off, what would you order? I figure they watch hundreds of plates come out of the kitchen every night, so their data is the most accurate.
That is a very trusting approach. I, on the other hand, do not trust the waiter at all.
Really? Why would they lie to you?
Because a restaurant is a business. Sometimes the waiter is instructed by the manager to push the most expensive item on the menu to drive up the bill and their tip. Or worse, the kitchen has 20 pounds of halibut that is going to spoil by tomorrow, so the chef tells the waiters, recommend the halibut to everyone tonight. No, I bypass the staff entirely. I rely purely on online reviews.
You are one of those people scrolling on your phone at the table.
I am. Before I even make a reservation, I am reading dozens of reviews. I am looking for consensus. If 3 strangers from completely different backgrounds all leave a review saying, you must order the spicy rigatoni, then I know the spicy rigatoni is genuinely the best thing in the building. I trust the collective wisdom of the internet crowd.
It is a slightly cynical strategy, but I can't deny that it is highly effective. But whether you are analyzing online reviews, asking a waiter for a recommendation, or arguing with your friend over whether mushrooms taste like dirt, you are engaging in something profound.
Which really brings us back to the core mission we set at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Exactly. For all of our listeners learning English, we hope you can see now that talking about food is never just about transferring data. It isn't just reciting the phrase, "I like pizza," from a textbook. When you describe the smell of your grandmother's 3-hour chicken soup, or when you tell a self-deprecating story about crying over a bowl of spicy Thai curry, or when you passionately defend crispy bacon over chewy bacon, you are revealing who you are.
You are letting your personality shine through the vocabulary. You are telling a story about your culture, your family, and your life. And that storytelling is the absolute best way to genuinely connect with native English speakers.
And as you practice these new adjectives like creamy, rich, earthy, soggy, and bland, we want to remind you of a fundamental truth of language learning. Making mistakes is not just okay, it is expected. It is a necessary part of the journey.
Absolutely. Maybe you were at a dinner party and you accidentally used the word soggy when you actually meant to say chewy.
Yeah.
It truly does not matter. The native speaker you are talking to will understand what you mean through your context, your facial expressions, and your passion. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal of language is connection, not perfection.
The goal is connection, not perfection. That is a brilliant philosophy to carry with you. Well, we have covered an immense amount of culinary ground today, from the pristine freshness of sushi to the heavy emulsification of carbonara, and from the psychology of comfort food to the chemistry of our biggest weaknesses. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought.
Yes, we want to turn the microphone over to you, the listener. We want you to ponder a very difficult hypothetical scenario. Imagine a rule was passed tomorrow, and for the rest of your entire life, you are only allowed to eat the cuisine of one single country. You can never have food from another culture again. What country's cuisine are you choosing?
That is a brutal question. You have to really think about palate fatigue and variety. So we challenge you. Go down to the comment section right now and tell us your answer. What is your absolute favorite cuisine or specific food? And crucially, why do you love it?
And here is the extra challenge for your English practice. When you write your comment, force yourself to use at least one or two of the advanced vocabulary words or idioms we broke down today. Describe the mouthfeel. Tell us if it is crispy, rich, bland, or buttery. Explain if it is your ultimate comfort food or your weakness. Put the vocabulary into real practice.
We read every single comment, and we absolutely love seeing how you apply what you've learned. Who knows, reading about your favorite meals might just inspire us to brave the kitchen and try cooking something new from scratch this weekend.
Just remind me to use enough butter and salt this time so it actually turns out flavorful.
I will supervise the seasoning. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us here on the Learn English at Ease podcast. If you found this conversation helpful or entertaining, please remember to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you're always here when we release a new deep dive.
You are all doing an incredible job on your language journey. Keep practicing, don't be afraid of making mistakes, and stay endlessly curious.
We wish you a truly wonderful morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you happen to be in the world right now. Take care of yourselves, go eat something incredibly delicious, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.